welcome everybody and happy New Year's Eve. You're listening to the Freedom Link on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. I'm Joe Joseph. Along with Chris Gio tonight, he's my sidekick for tonight. And also, I got a special guest here, another TFR, one of our own here at TFR. And that's John Phillips of the White Buffalo Hour. He's going to be joining me tonight. And Ken Webb's going to be making an appearance. And Kev Baker's going to be coming on. It's going to be a real good time the next couple hours before we hand it off to Phoenix and Phoenix Rising. John Phillips, welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, how you doing tonight, Joseph? Thanks for having me aboard. It's been a while since I've had an opportunity to be on the show.
Yeah, and of course you too, Chris. It's always good to have you here too.
Always a pleasure. And I just want to take a moment, Joe, if you don't mind.
Sure.
To say thank you to you. For everything that you've done for TFR, because you've worked tirelessly behind the scenes throughout 2014 to make TFR what it is in 2015. And I am just completely astounded by the growth that we've seen in the last year and where we're heading for 2015. And it's, we were only able to bring it so far, Cherie and I, but it wasn't until we really built this team and this solid foundation that we're able to excel in leaps and bounds. And so, for the record, I just want to say thank you very much. We appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts, and I know the listeners out there appreciate it too.
Oh, shucks, man. Oh, it was nothing, really. No, I appreciate it, but if you thought 2014 was good for TFR, guys, 2015 is going to be phenomenal. Because look at the lineup right now that we're kicking off here with the new year. I mean, it is awesome from, what is it, I think it's 8. Is it 8 a.m. Pacific or something? 11 Pacific? I can't remember what it is where we start live programming every day.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. So 8 a.m. Pacific straight on to 9 p.m. Pacific.
On some days, it's until 11 p.m. Pacific.
Right. So, I mean, that's phenomenal stuff. You don't, put it in perspective. Where were we a year ago? You know what I mean, dude? I mean, we were just, what do we have, like half the hosts that we did now? So, I mean, in a year, we've come a long way, And
before that, we had 8 hosts, 9 hosts, just like a regular station out there. But over the past year, now we have 30 shows on the station, 30 shows. That's a lot for a single station. GCN, for instance, they have 80 shows, but they have 6 stations. They have 6 channels.
6 channels, yeah.
And I think it's kind of counterproductive because you just divide up your audience. Why do that?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Now you drive more traffic, but you sacrifice because everybody, if you notice, in the independent media, a lot of people do the nighttime radio because the simple fact that, they may work during the day or whatever. So what happens is that you don't have it straight across the board, that live content. It's spread out over the same time periods, and it just drowns out the audience. So you're right. It is tough to have an operation like that, But, and by the way, Kev said he'll be there in a minute because he's getting a beer. Arr. Arr. He's got to get his cup of grog. Arg. Shiver me timbers. Okay, so 2014. There was a lot of crazy stuff that happened in 2014. And I want to talk a little bit about, kind of recap what 2014 was and then some of the stuff that I've dug up today. Really unbelievable stuff. The first thing, though, is Sandy Hook. Okay, so Sandy Hook happened in 2013, but there's been a lot of digging and investigating that's happened in 2014, and Red Flag News just came out and said that Brandon Shanley, launched a wave of lawsuits for more than $1 trillion against big media over the Sandy Hook massacre coverage. $1 trillion lawsuit. How fast do you think that gets thrown out? I mean, come on, And the problem is, all the evidence points clearly that it was an absolute and total fraud, that it was a total and complete false flag.
I completely agree with you, and we're very lucky to have James Tracy on the network, and that was something that Popeye arranged. So it just goes to show how the station really isn't just one person. It is so many different people contributing.
Sure is.
And that's why we've become what we've become. And that's why we stand out from the rest, because we have that tightly knit group. But James Tracy was one of the first people to point out all the inconsistencies in the Sandy Hook situation. And a lot of people were afraid to point out the fact that it was totally staged because they didn't want to, quote unquote, offend the parents or any of the victims. But as more and more evidence starts to surface, it turns out that there's absolutely no victims. It was a totally staged FEMA operation.
Yeah, and guys like Wolfgang Halbig and Fetzer, Dr. James Fetzer, they did a lot of research, wrote well over 35 articles on it. Dr. Tracy, CNN tried to Shanghai him, and that didn't work out so well. And, in the end, we have a general understanding as far as, in the independent media that things didn't go quite as they say it did. As a matter of fact, it didn't go anything like they say it did. But John Phillips, I mean, do you think that a lawsuit of this magnitude or lawsuits of this magnitude would have any standing in our broken court systems?
I think it's hard to predict what will happen in our broken court system sometimes.
Yeah.
And, there's in lieu of those, the Sandy Hook incident, I don't know if any of you have read any of the laws that got passed in the legislature there.
No.
Well, they passed
you mean like the as far as the gun laws and stuff?
Well, not the gun laws, but also, they passed this law that suddenly the state would not release any evidence whatsoever from homicides.
Really?
In the entire state. And of course it was originally pushed through as so-called protection for the parents at Sandy Hook, but eventually it applied to all homicides in the state, which of course has created an incredible mess, especially for people who are trying to get off for murders they didn't do or. But there's a real lockdown on the flow of information in Connecticut in general, I know.
Yeah, it says here, let me give you the complaint. This is Mr. Shanley's complaint. It says defendants entered into a multi-year conspiracy, meeting in groups separately and together, to commit fraud and terrorism, i.e. to brainwash the public, into thinking a lone gunman drill known as the Sandy Hook Massacre was real when in fact it was a staged FEMA national level exercise event that redirected government resources to terrorize the public. These crimes were undertaken with the intent of subverting the U.S. Constitution and to affect national, state, and local laws. This fraud involved lying to the public, faking news, publishing one-sided news reports, censoring reality, suppressing facts, and deliberately skewing the news to shift public perceptions. And the true cost of this breach of integrity and trust to society are unfathomable. Instead of fulfilling their constitutional role as the people's surrogates and being honest brokers of information, the plaintiff will show how men and women who dominate the TV news industry in the United States broke laws, besmirched the First Amendment, their constitutional role as government watchdogs, and forfeited the right to report the news and search for the truth. It says our fourth estate chose a different path. Punitive damages of 1 year's annual revenue from each defendant are being sought to establish a news trust that will free journalism and restore trust and integrity to our communication sources. A democracy cannot survive this tyranny over human consciousness. And just so you know, like the New York Times, the Associated Press, the Hartford Courant, and the Newtown Bee are being sued for $10 billion punitive damages in each separate complaint. And that's just one. And there are other complaints that are filed. So it's a total of $1 trillion that he's going after. But it's a hell of an idea, though. I mean, think about that, Chris.
Well, I commend the guy for doing what he's doing. I just don't see it going anywhere. Because what we're doing is going into the same system that created the mess to begin with and trying to rectify the situation, which is not going to happen.
No, you're absolutely right. That is not going to happen at all.
Well, and remember that the law they just passed is key to doing a court case like this, because
Sure.
It says that there's no access to autopsies. So,
but you'd have to think though that a judge that you could actually have it subpoenaed. You know,
no. Read the law.
So you couldn't even subpoena it for a trial?
Even if you were, say that you were in prison for a murder that you didn't commit, you still can't have access to that data to try to get yourself free.
Yeah, that's just absolutely ridiculous. Unbelievable. I mean, and again, Chris.
I mean, I think the courts is a very, very interesting question. I know that there are some large lawsuits going on in the financial markets now that I don't really understand. It's just in my experience with this in court. Is that money rules? So if you're suing the New York Times and people like that, they have big legal budgets.
Oh yeah, no, they do. Same with the government. Think about that. Same with the government. Right. You're basically going up against somebody with limitless or bottomless pockets.
Right.
And that's the issue, is that here we are resource limited. So if you're resource limited, why would you take the fight into that arena? Knowing full well that chances are, and with courts, it's all about jurisdiction. It's all about jurisdiction and then the area that you're in. It's kind of like this, If I wanted to go and challenge, let's say, the Controlled Substances Act to try and get marijuana in North Carolina, it'd be foolish of me to go down that avenue to do it here because I live in the Bible Belt. I would never, ever be able to get anything through like that, the court system, period, even if it went to a jury trial, just because the mindset of the people that make up this demographic is not, they're not as, quote, liberal as you could towards something like that. But if I say took it to Denver, Colorado, or if I took it into Washington or even Oregon, where you had laws such as, in Oregon, they have the one where the assisted suicide law, I think it is, where, you can choose to opt out and end your life early if you want. That latest, I think there was a young lady that did that here recently. That mindset shows a more liberal slant or a more of an aptitude to accept individual liberty. So in that regard, maybe it would be advantageous to go to a jury trial or something like that in an Oregon or a Denver or a place like that. So, but even so, something like this is just a little bit, I think it's a little bit too much to go into the courts and expect anything of significance.
Well, I think you'd have to go into the court in Connecticut, right? Since that's the scene of the crime.
Sure.
And as somebody who lives in Boston, and, we're just about to start that marathon bombing trial, although there's all kinds of motions flying back and forth. Put it this way, in relationship to the Boston Marathon bombing, evidence that you and I would like to introduce in a courtroom like that, just, it wouldn't be possible. And the atmosphere is such, I mean, if you want to really silence a whole room of people in Boston, start talking about the marathon bombing and the possibility that they didn't act alone and everyone, It's like when you used to talk about the Kennedy assassination, 20 years ago, and people would look at you funny.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. But now's a different story. See, you'd think that it wouldn't be, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit naive, but you would think now in the information age, and the fact that people have access to this information and can dig if they want to, that there would be a little more open-mindedness to different possibilities. but you just don't have it still. You know, for the most part, you know, if you do, like you said, with the Boston bombing, you get just that. Almost like that patriotic 9/11 response that just happened after 9/11, which is, you know, all right, it's America. Come on, we got to do this for America. And it's just, you don't understand. America did it to you.
Right. And that's, and that's, you know, that's difficult in any of these different types of cases, you know, going in to Sandy Hook and trying to do a legal case in that area. You know, very, very difficult. So it will, you know, it's going to be interesting to see in this. I'm going to be interested to see which. I don't think this Sandy Hook story is over. There's too many inconsistencies in the story.
No, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of inconsistencies in the story, and will it ever come to light? Will it just end up going out into obscurity like the Kennedy assassination? And basically, let's be honest, that's where the Kennedy assassination is. Just like 9/11, right, Chris? I mean, we all know that it didn't go down the way it did, but I don't know if we'll ever see in our day any sort of independent investigation into either one of those events.
No, again, it goes right back to asking the exact same people who created the event to investigate themselves. That's not going to happen, but I would say that 9/11 has been reinvestigated over and over and over again by independent investigators, and we've all drawn the same conclusion, that the official story is not true. And so that right there, in my opinion, is enough just to change the mind of any critical thinking individual. The problem is critical thinking individuals are far and few between in this day and age, and so you know, I think that's where we're at, but people are demanding a new investigation, but we've already done it. We've already exposed Sandy Hook. We've already exposed 9/11. Now we need to figure out what are we going to do with the information that we have.
Yeah. No, you're right. What do we do with it? That is the question leading into 2015, for sure. Another question that's leading into 2015, and I'll start with you, John. Is Russia anti-Illuminati?
Well, I think I've done a number of shows about this. I think the key to understanding Putin is the document that was written by Fred Burks called The Black Eagle Trust in 9/11. Have you ever read that document?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, it basically documents the fact that the day, as you'll remember, the day after 9/11, or really the day of 9/11, the SEC closed the markets and allowed a whole lot of transactions to happen under special circumstances for 15 days. Well, in this article by Fred Burks, and the thing that's interesting about him is he was a translator for Clinton, for Bush 1 and for Clinton. And, you know, it's 136 pages long with footnotes, this document. But it shows that there were $240 billion in illegal bonds that were pushed through the SEC so that they didn't have to be paid for. And the importance of this to the Russian story is that money was being used much like they're trying to attack the ruble today. It was being used to attack the ruble back when Putin was, part of the secret police. So this is a story that he must know about, and he must know who all the players are in this, because that's a great document to read, by the way, as far as the financial end of 9/11. $240 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah, you could do a lot of damage with that.
Right, and basically that's what they had done. They had borrowed $240 billion to bankrupt the ruble in, I can't remember, 1990 something, as I remember.
Yeah.
And the bonds had come due, and they didn't have money to pay. Well, they probably did have the money to pay them, but why pay them when you can get rid of them? The other part of the story, of course, that's interesting is Cantor Fitzgerald which lost most of its employees, were the company holding the paper, the actual bonds.
Yeah.
And McClellan, which was the insurance company underneath, which lost like 290 employees, was also a company that was heavily involved in managing this stuff, I understand. But
I saw this Collective Evolution article today, and that's kind of what made me kind of think about it. And they referenced Winston Churchill, that basically it was this phrase, it's a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. And when I saw Winston Churchill, I was like, wait a minute, that's not the only thing that he said. He actually specifically referenced Russia way back then, and Russia's kind of always been a stick in the side of the powers that shouldn't be, believe it or not. And as a result, I can understand now more why Russia's always kind of butt heads with the West. In 1920, Winston Churchill, he recognizes the connection between the Illuminati and the Bolshevik Revolution. And this is what he said. He said, quote, "From the days of Spartacus Weishaupt to those of Karl Marx to those of Trotsky, Bela Kun, Rosa Luxemburg, and Emma Goldman, this worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization and for the reconstitution of society on the basis of arrested development, of envious malevolence, and impossible equality has been steadily growing. It played a definite role in the tragedy of the French Revolution. It's been the mainspring of every subversive movement during the 19th century, and now at last, this extraordinary band of personalities from the underworld of the great cities of Europe and America have gripped the Russian people by their hair and have become practically the undisputed masters of that enormous empire." So, through the Bolshevik Revolution, they actually took control. And when I look at that, Chris, if I look at that and I analyze that correctly, then what I say is that Russia's not anti-Illuminati at all. If anything, Russia plays part of the game. They're playing the game just like everybody else, you know?
I think you're right about that to a certain extent, because I think what's happening now is we're seeing a power struggle between the West and the Russian, that whole area there, to figure out who's going to be at the helm of this new world order. It's not that they weren't playing into the agenda, because they definitely were. They were definitely a part of it. Now they realize that they're about to get screwed if they allow Israel and the United States and the UK and the whole Western forces to lead the new world order.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it's really just a bunch of factions that are kind of playing with each other, but at the same time, they're all going towards one goal. And it's not just leave me alone. You know, of course, we had the Ukraine crisis that kicked off earlier in the year, all because of what? The escalation. There was an escalation that led up to MH370 being shot down, correct? Or no, MH17, pardon me, MH17. And, you know, it was quickly found that, oh, by the way, the West doctored all the images. And really what happened was the Ukrainian Air Force had shot down MH17. And even after all that, even after all the evidence is shown, and there has been numerous media sources that have come out and said, yeah, that's what's really happened, still no traction. At least here in the United States. I don't know about overseas, but I do know the United States. You've heard virtually nothing on that.
There's no accountability at all in this entire world. And that's the bulk of the problem that we're facing here, because politicians can get in office and do whatever they want without being held accountable for it. And so they do whatever they want. And I think we're coming up to the break. Is that correct?
Yeah, we got about another minute.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, it really comes down to accountability. So when we look at these agendas being exposed, we can't be surprised when there's no accountability, and nobody even seems to care. The mainstream media is completely bought off. We already know that. So who else is going to expose this except for independent media?
No, you're
and
right.
we have been doing a darn good job of it.
I think so. The tide is definitely shifting, and there is an awakening afoot. It's just very slow to surface, and hopefully it's not a day late.
The State of Cannabis with Liam Sheff. Mondays on Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Freedom Link on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com, New Year's Eve edition. I'm Joe Joseph, along with Chris Gio, Cherie Gio, and John Phillips. And Kev Baker's going to be joining us soon. And as soon as Ken Webb stops stuffing his face with crab legs and Cristal, he's going to be coming on too. And I hope he's tuned in so he heard that, because he's probably he's probably got crab meat coming out of his nose right now. But before the break, we were talking about Russia and the geopolitical situation that's going on. Guys, the Cold War to me was at least a little believable, in the sense that, World War II was over. We had the problem with, the whole nuke thing going, and we had the arms race. So it kind of, it was believable in a way. But this, if you can't tell that this is totally and completely BS from the start, I don't know what would convince people. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I'm sorry. Can you rephrase the question?
Well, it's simply like this. The Cold War was at least believable in that there was a buildup to it. You know what I mean? There was like a legitimate buildup where the United States goes and they develop the atomic bomb first, right?
Are you asking if Russia's really a threat?
This time around, it sure doesn't seem that way.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So what is the purpose then? Why attack Russia? Why go after them financially? Why go after them, go after the ruble, go after the oil?
This has been the plan since the very beginning. Brzezinski always had a hard-on for Russia and always wanted to bring them down. He successfully brought down the Soviet Union by creating the Mujahideen and provoking Russia into a war that they could not sustain. So back in 2007, I was on with Nathan Frazier, and I remember Nathan when I said this at the time in 2007, Nathan on the show just went, okay. But I said that the plan was to provoke Russia and China into a war that they cannot sustain, because Brzezinski has written about this time and time again. And so as this whole New World Order agenda is coming to a close, or coming to the pinnacle, I should say, now's the time to bring down Russia and China. And by doing so, and the way to do that is by creating a war with them. Now, why would they want to do this? Well, number one, you can't have two superpowers leading a new world order, because then it's not a new world order anymore. But when you think about the economic hold that China has around us, that's ultimately what we're trying to break, in my opinion, because they pretty much own everything. So if we can bring them down economically, then all of a sudden everything that they own here in the United States, the fact that they control our dollar, all of that, it becomes meaningless.
So basically then, I guess what you're saying is that it is trying to box China in. So they're taking out China's competitors, China's allies one at a time, I guess you could say.
That's what I get from it.
Yeah, it's a legitimate. I think that's legitimate.
That's the whole reason why Iran has been, and Syria, for instance, because what we're doing is trying to provoke Russia and China by going after the allies, who is Iran, for instance. We don't even need to go into Iran now, though, because we've done a pretty good job of provoking Putin.
Speak of provoking. There's a kind of a mischievous figure that just joined us right now.
Is he Scottish?
Yeah, that's always the Scots.
Oh.
Going,
guys. 2015 here. How's it going?
Kev Baker, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Nice to meet you, Kevin Baker. John
So tell
Phillips
us-
here.
Tell us real quick, what is 2015 like? Any revelations that you can let us know? What can we expect for 2015?
Pretty much the same, I'd say, Chris. No big revelations here so far.
Okay, very good.
Nothing?
Nah, nothing, Joe.
Not a thing.
Not a flicker.
Damn it. That's unbelievable, man. I thought for sure, well, I did listen to your show, so I mean, it's not like I can't, there's no spoilers. I know where you stand. So what do you think about Russia?
I'm just wondering how long they're actually going to take all the sanctions and everything else that they're under right now.
That's a good question. What could they possibly do to retaliate outside of nuclear weapons? I mean, I think that they're doing fairly well now. See, I think that this, you know what? I think that Russia provoked this. And I'm going to tell you how. I think Russia today, I don't think that the powers that shouldn't be, I don't think that the non-representing representatives, I think that they are totally and completely just beside themselves because Russia went and opened up a state-sponsored news network right in the United States. And, oh, by the way, it's popular as crap. I can see why that would stick in people's craw, but I'm glad that they did it.
Didn't Hillary Clinton actually complain about that to Congress, that Russia has too much power with Russia Today or something like that, or Al Jazeera too?
Yeah, exactly. See, they don't like it done to them. That's the problem. And so Russia just played their book. They was like, well, if they can do it, then we can do it too. And then of course we had the whole Ed Snowden thing. And that was kind of like a snub at them. Yeah, oh, by the way, we'll offer this guy safe haven, no problem. No problem. Come on here, Eddie boy. Hey, what else do you know? You're an American hero. So I don't know, man. I think that there's been a good back and forth going, but I don't know. John Phillips, do you think that Russia deserves any of this crap?
Well, I think that, that what Chris was mentioning about China is absolutely correct. I think one of the odd consequences, of course, is that by putting all of these attacks on Russia, they're growing closer to China.
Sure.
And we can't match the resources between China and Russia together.
Well, no, because China is our production capacity now.
I also, I don't know if you saw the new, there was a very interesting article on Veterans Today that the real plan in the Ukraine is to turn it into a second Jewish state.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Well,
that makes
because
some,
that's where the Khazars come out of originally, isn't
yeah, I was
Right,
just going to say that.
that makes some sense to me.
Because, well, I think
Better than Southeast Texas.
maybe.
Did y'all hear about that? They wanted to make a whole section of Southeast Texas, Little Israel, like a new Israel. Or
Well,
something.
I was going to say, that's when I was.
No, they didn't want to make Southeast Texas. They wanted to make Palestine, Texas, Israel.
Oh,
Dumbass.
I got you.
Can I just say something? This was originally my idea that we would, and I mean this quite seriously, that we'd take the whole border between Mexico and the U.S. and just take it a half mile wide, and we'll make that Israel. They're good at keeping people from crossing the border.
Yeah, they are at that.
And then we cure two problems with.
You think? Well, before I was awakened, I always said, man, we should just take those Israelis and put them into a section of Arizona or something like that. It's arid, similar climates, and then instead, I think what I said instead, after we do that and we get them all settled in, then we just nuke the Middle East till it glows. That's the way I used to think. Now it's kind of like, damn. When you actually look into it and find out, wow, Israel has nothing to do with Hebrews or the Jews, the nation of Israel itself and where its roots come from. Like Kev said, you know, Khazars, the Ukrainians, the Zionazis. That's who they are. And it kind of puts a whole new perspective on things. It also helps you see the whole Ukrainian situation for what it is, too. Because I think it's a lot more dynamic than what we're being led on to believe, that it's just this, you know, Ukrainian government trying to get its sovereignty and blah, 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 and those bad Russians. I think there's so much more to it than that, you know?
Do you think that if they were to give a part of Arizona to Israel, then... Are you all laughing for the punchline?
Come on. And
Quentin Tarantino would make a movie called Shakira. For Jerusalem.
Wait a minute. Wait. For Jerusalem? Is that a Scottish?
It's a Scottish Jewish accent.
Scottish Israeli accent? I got you.
Irish.
I can't. You can do the Jewish accent better than I can.
No, I can't. I can't do that. Mm-mm.
Well, we can.
Yeah, you got it down pat. There's no doubt about it, Kev. You got it down pat.
No, not me, man.
Shalom. Shalom indeed.
Shalom, my brother.
So
in the voice of Illuminati.
So you had to go Illuminati on me, huh?
That's what my shalom sounded like, so why not?
So 2014, it was one hell of a year. Wasn't it? Now, you kind of went over the whole 2014 during your broadcast.
Yeah, we tried to run it down, but I mean, there was that much to cover. I mean, take your pick.
Well, there was a, say, for example, like the war cycle, that picked up, you know, big rises in civil unrest. More soldiers died in 2014 than before, and the number of civilian casualties rose sharply even in Afghanistan. So 2014, when the war is winding down, right, you still have an increase in civilian casualties. Of course, that's probably attributed to drone usage. And then on the political scene, you had a big shift in the political soap opera that's our election cycle. And now you've got Republicrats in House that control both houses. So my prediction for 2015 is it's going to be the same as 2014. It's going to be a whole lot of crap, a slow boil, and a bunch of crap to pay attention to, and no shortage of things to talk about.
I think we have to learn to rise above it, though, Joe. Because
How's that?
I really do think we play a big part in manifesting our very own future. And, you know, buying into it and concentrating on all their false flags and their shenanigans, it just kind of enables them. And we have to be able to see beyond that and connect locally and start forming some kind of groups or something, because if we keep going the way we are, then I really fear for what's ahead.
I agree. I think that that change has to happen at a local level. I don't know, John. You were active for quite a while. Change is really best suited at a local level, wouldn't you say?
No, I absolutely agree that the local level is important. I still think the biggest story of 2014 was the number of people in the street, especially since Thanksgiving. You know, if in the fall, if you had predicted, you know, that they would be shutting down the Brooklyn Bridge, and, you know, I'm not saying that everybody's even got their priorities straight, but to see that number of people mobilize, I think, is very important. The question is, can we get that number of people mobilized carrying the right message? And that really has been the difficulty, really, since the assassination, at least in our country, since the assassination of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King. At least as far as I'm concerned, that's the last time there was kind of this unified.
They couldn't allow that to happen. You know, MLK and RFK ticket? No. Not after the whole failed JFK experiment. We're not going to have, no. No, we thought Joe Kennedy had him brainwashed. Oops. We failed to take into account the whole PT boat experience and the camaraderie that he felt, being in that kind of situation. So, yeah, we're not going to chance it with RFK. Now, I think we should just kill him. And I think that's what happened. Same with MLK, You don't want to play ball? No problem. We'll just take you out. Unfortunately, now, these days, it's not as easy. It's not as easy as it was back then to where you can formulate a narrative and actually sell it. Because if you notice, independent media is on them like white on rice as soon as something happens. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, you're right about that.
Yeah.
But one of the other problems we have with the explosion of media as well is, separating the wheat from the shaft is a difficult thing there. And I think, Kev had a good point there. Some of the people in alternative media, and I think this is something that separates Truth Frequency as well, it's 100% fear 100% of the time. And, we've been hearing that we're all coming to our end, every other week since 2008. And I think it's good to be educated, but it's also good. At some point, we got to decide that we are going to set an agenda of where we're going to head instead of being in a state of fear. Talking forever about this and that are coming, but never making any of our own plans to move forward with what we see as a better vision in the community.
Speaking of people in the street. The United States wasn't the only place where we had people in the street in 2014. As a matter of fact, Chris and Cherie, over in Germany, there's been a marked increase in the amount of, let's say, hate-based protests, like anti-Islamic protests. In one of their larger cities, I think it's Dresden. They had a protest here recently with 17,000 people that showed up to protest Islam. Tell me that that's not being totally and completely pushed. It
is, absolutely. And like I've mentioned before, I see all these Facebook posts like women in chains being let off to meet their husbands, forced sex slaves and whatnot. And these are like Muslim recreations, the Day of Ashura, for instance, which is the Day of Martyrs. I see more and more posts like this than I care to. There's a couple as well where there's beheading videos now from the cartels, where the cartels basically, they catch people that are snitching and behead them, sending a message to the other cartels. And so people have taken these beheading videos and put captions. They're sending a message to America that you better let their people through the border. It's ridiculousness. But it's all this spin and hype that really distorts the fact of the matter. And that is that there are no more Islamic extremists than there are Christian extremists. We see Christian extremists with the Westboro Baptist Church, but when you take a Muslim extremist, or you take a Muslim period and say that he's a Muslim extremist, that's the same as taking all Christians and saying they're part of the Westboro Baptist Church. It's just not factually based whatsoever.
It's a good
analogy. What they've done, is they've created a situation where you can point the finger at a certain religion and just hate them just for the religion, and that's it. But if that religion really was a violent religion, which I've looked into it and it's really not, nobody would really go for it because you have to remember, Islam is based out of the Torah, just like the Bible is based from the Torah. It's all a Judaic religion. So what happened is that Abraham took Isaac up to the mountain and sacrificed him, or was going to sacrifice him, and then God stepped in and said, "Oh no, don't sacrifice him." And then the Jews and the Christians all believe in the bloodline following Isaac.
Right.
However, the Muslims, they believe that it was Ishmael who was taken up to the mountain and almost sacrificed, and God said, no, don't sacrifice him. And so they follow the line of Ishmael. So that's where the split really comes in.
And really the whole the term Muslim is a 20th century term. They weren't called Muslim up until the 20th century. Before that, they were called
I think I remember what it is. It's crazy beheading people.
Yes, the crazy beheading people with turbans.
Do you not think these psychopaths, they just hijack any book, any religion, and they just use that as a vehicle for their hate?
Yeah.
I mean, these psychos, if it wasn't for the Quran, they would latch onto something else. Just, they're violent people.
Well, it's a means to an end.
Yeah, here in Glasgow, Joe, there's a big Catholic and Protestant divide. But I bet when you sit down with a lot of these people, they don't actually know the roots of that. And again, it's just a vehicle for hate. These people would hate whatever happens. I don't know why. But they just use these things as the vehicle. And it's absolutely wrong of us to fall into the trap to demonize, 1 billion Muslims worldwide? I mean, if you work it out on a percentage level, it really, can we really lump them all into the same basket?
Well, I never believed the whole that Armageddon's going to be Muslims versus the Christians. The Muslims are going to be trying to exterminate the Christians.
It's all to keep us at work.
Yeah, but I'm actually seeing like a groundwork here being laid for this kind of crap. You know?
Oh, that's what they're trying to provoke, without a doubt. And that's why it's important to shed the light on the truth behind the matter. Kev is spot on in his analysis. These people are just the very few, and you have to remember these are very few, but they would be extremists no matter what.
No matter what.
See,
exactly.
you know, in the 90s, remember there was a big epidemic with white supremacists, neo-Nazis, all that,
and Satanism, and all that.
Satanism. I mean, you know, they turn to any group and try to say, oh, that's the enemy right there. Don't look at us. Don't look at the bankers. Don't look at the people robbing and pillaging. Don't look at the people waging wars. It's the poor people, and it's these crazy groups, and it's these religions, and so on and so forth. Now, my stance on religion, as I'm sure you know, I think all religion should be abolished because all they do is divide. They were created in order to divide people, and they are continuing to divide people. And then you do get that 1% of the people that go, oh, I really need to kill somebody for my religion. But you see it on all ends, too. But the majority of them are not. But what we have over there in the Middle East are people who have lost their homes. They've seen their parents killed in front of them. They've buried their daughters.
By
invading armies, yes. And I guarantee you that if any other country invaded the United States, I would be the first one to stand up and be a quote-unquote terrorist. Because that's exactly what they would call me.
Yeah. No, that's right. Let me give you Martin Armstrong's take on this. This is Armstrong Economics. He says, it says the anti-Islamic movement brewing is indeed caused by government who have exploited the whole terrorist issue to further justify their power on every level, from spying on the people to tracing all the money flows, which is really for taxation. The unrestrained exploitation of the whole, quote, terrorist issue to further government power has had a kickback in creating a perception that's becoming anti-Islamic, and as uneducated people see images of ISIS and beheadings attributing this all to Islam. The constant fear-mongering politics over, quote, terrorism has been used to expand government control, and the reaction is now that many people just fear Islam, lacking the understanding that government has exploited this entire issue.
Right. How come we don't go after Saudi Arabia?
Exactly.
They're the ones who are beheading people. They're the ones that if you're gay, you get executed in the streets. If women are caught in the street not wearing their headdress, they get beaten. We've brought these ideologies to Afghanistan. We brought these ideologies to these other countries. Afghanistan in the 70s was a free country until we bombed them back to the Stone Age and installed the Taliban. But the women used to go to university wearing short skirts. There's pictures of it. You can see how Afghanistan was back then before we invaded. But we installed all of these extremists so we can point the finger at them, while at the same time we don't really point the finger at Saudi Arabia. Oh God, no, because we get our oil from them. Right. So we definitely don't want to piss off our friends. But that's why people need to realize that all of this is a stage. That's it. And when they're moving around the puppets, you have to be sure to look for the strings and to look to the people that are actually pulling the puppets.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It says government, in their quest to expand their power, have set in motion a trend that appears to be setting the stage for a new round of religious conflict. This trend feeds into the very support for ISIS. As oil collapses in price, the economy in the Middle East will move into a serious recession, and as that unfolds, more and more people will turn towards the differences in religion. That makes total sense. See, because now it makes sense. But See, we said, wow, this has to be an attack on Russia. But why have a ton? Why look through through like a paper towel roll at it or a microscope when you can look at the whole picture and see that this is a dynamic, multifaceted plan?
Let me give you an example of how people are so easily manipulated. And this is the whole Christian community out there that is being manipulated right now to destroy Christianity. And let me tell you how this is happening. First of all, we have a freedom of religion in this country. I stand by the Constitution. Even though I don't agree with any religions out there, I stand for anybody's right to follow whatever religion that they want.
Sure.
However, what atheists, and I believe it's atheists, not Satanists, what atheists have done in order to get Christians to tie the noose around their own neck is they've started to hand out satanic literature to the children in schools and setting up statues that are satanic statues. And so now all the Christians are going, no, get that out of school. What they're actually doing is saying get religion out of school, because if you treat one religion a certain way, you have to treat them all a certain way. You see how this agenda is being played?
Oh, yeah, no. That was a fabulous example of you're exactly right.
Well, wait. Hold on here, though.
Hold on. We got to go to break, John.
Sorry. Okay.
But on the other side of the break, we'll have John. Okay. John will get the first word on the other side. So it's hour number 2 of the Freedom Link right here on TruthFrequencyRadio.com. I'm Joe Joseph, along with Kev Baker, Chris and Cherie Gio, and John Phillips. Damn, what a good first hour that was, John Phillips. Right before the break, we were talking. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the Satanists.
Yes, the Satanists. Okay, and trying to remove the religion from school. Go ahead, John.
Well, I have strong feelings about this religion in school thing, because I think that you have to think about answer the question, what is religion?
Yes.
To really think about that. And I think about, for instance, and I spent 5 years living in a very tight-knit minority community in Boston. 126 kids in my neighborhood had died in 14 years. Basically, if you could imagine growing up your whole life, one funeral a month from the time you were born, and, your aunts and your uncles. And, very
That's a good way to put it in perspective.
Very devastating on the community. And, of course, you get to see how they enforced I had a second-floor apartment overlooking where the gang in this neighborhood hung out. So for 5 years, I used to get to watch how the police interacted. And Boston police, I got to tell you, are pretty good. But my point here is that within one day I decided to count, and within one block of my house, there were 50 kids in single-mother families.
Oh, sure.
Now, those same kids, when they go to grade school in Boston, what do you think the first thing they learn about a family is?
Mom and dad?
No, it's not. No.
No, I'm saying, but as far as like a family, what do you think? What is it?
How are they introduced to family life in grade school?
I don't know.
The first lesson they get is that it's okay to have 2 mommies or 2 daddies.
Oh! I got what you're saying now. Yeah. Okay, sorry, a little.
So, and again, I'm a strong supporter of gay rights. But, if you want to you hear everybody on the right and the left talking about doing something for these communities. It's going to require, I hate to sound like a neoconservative here, but it's going to take family values and reintroducing some new ideas in the schools.
It is. There is no doubt about that. I, too, am a champion of individual rights. I believe that God gave us all free will, and that you are free to do what you want to do, to believe what you want to believe, and I'm not going to knock you for it. But regardless of what we believe, doesn't change reality. The outcome will always be the same. Eventually, the creator is going to be the creator, no matter what. And the natural way of things is a man and a woman get together, to have a baby. That's a family.
Yeah, but you see it in nature, though. That's
you
the
do.
thing.
Well, you do see it in
Yeah,
nature.
you see homosexuality in nature. And so because it's in nature, then these animals haven't been conditioned a certain way. And so it must be something. I mean, I can tell you this. If you
But you're not
told me-
reproducing. We'll put it that way. That's what I'm trying to say, is that you don't reproduce that way.
I wasn't, by the way,
but-
trying to give an anti-message.
Yeah, no, there's no
I'm just
anti-message.
suggesting that, you take young kids
Yeah.
who really have difficulty in relationship to family because their fathers are never around.
They're not there.
And then the kids are, there's no surprise they're confused.
And without a real male role model, is it possible that they do take on some more of the female tendencies? And, has the breakdown of the family structure conversely led to more homosexual people? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. That's the thing
show me some statistics that say that
just couldn't. I don't think
child comes out worse because he has two fathers or two mothers or something like that.
No, that wasn't what I was saying.
Yeah, that's not what we're saying.
That's not. I'm just saying that you were making the argument that having religion in schools is a bad idea.
Right.
I would make the argument that every great religion of the world, man and woman, are the basis of that. And second of all, that the basis of the second thing that all those religions share is what Joe was saying, this idea of one God. And the third thing they share is the principle that you should love your neighbor as yourself.
Right. Mutual respect and personal responsibility across all of the religions. As a matter of fact, if you look at Muhammad's writings, in regards to Christians and how, if a Christian entered the land, what they were to do, unbelievable that they would go and they would protect, the Christians, no matter what. They would treat them as if they were honored guests in their land. And that's the way it was. If you look at the way things used to be across the religious spectrum, there used to be a modicum of respect between them. You may have had warring factions or kingdoms that went to war, but in reality, in the early times, there was a lot of mutual respect for the different belief systems. And that has been kind of engineered out of us, just like the divide and conquer, Chris, with the hetero and homosexual communities, because they don't focus on the fact that everybody has a right to do with their body as they please, regardless. You can't change that or stop that. So,
well, I would challenge anybody out there who's against homosexuality to go have a homosexual relationship.
well,
no, I'm 100% serious because I know.
Wait a minute, have you had a homosexual relationship?
No. What I'm saying is that I couldn't force myself to have a homosexual relationship because I'm a heterosexual. So why is it that we can believe that others can change their mindset or their sexuality by force and saying that it's immoral and this and that? I mean,
I think it's more moral to force a 16-year-old kid to kill themselves because they've reached that age where they can't transition to a female now and they feel like their life is completely over, and because of one misstep of their parents, they commit suicide. I'm sick and tired of seeing that happen. That's completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it's psychological torture. And unfortunately that's what these religions have done to our entire society and species since the beginning of time, is psychological torture. I mean, think about the scientific progress we would have had if there wasn't 1,500 years of religious oppression on it. We would be on the other side of the cosmos right
Sure.
now.
Well, not only that.
Let me pose this question to you, Joe. Do you think that mankind will ever get to a spiritually evolved place to where they no longer need religion?
No. No, I don't. I don't think it's possible. And I'll tell you why. The same reason why we still have cars with tires and we don't have free energy right now. But even though Tesla and Murray and Priori had perfected the damn technology well over 100 years ago. That's why. Because it's gone from that secular power or the religious power to a more like corporate power. The corporate religions or corporate gods now rule the roost. It's kind of been a transfer of power. So these religious like the Vatican, for example, they may wield a lot of power behind the scenes, but they're certainly not as overt and as powerful as they used to be when they commanded armies to go and just go exterminate people during the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition. You know, it just that they don't wield that type of power overtly out front anymore. It's more of like a corporate power that's holding us back, that's holding humanity back. That and the whole divide and conquer thing. But that all derives from, you know, I think a corporate-based mentality, you know, that Rothschild-based mentality that, it's
Okay,
not,
so
it's not
you're
religious anymore.
You're hitting on some excellent points here. I mean, totally. And it goes back to government as well. Government is a religion in itself, the belief that
It is.
this entity out there is all powerful
And
they're
that they
gonna
can take care
from
of you.
cradle to grave.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So what we're essentially talking about, or what I'm talking about here essentially, is dissolving all of these systems of control, including religion, because when you sit there and really analyze it, we're really talking about the exact same thing.
I hate the
Religion
term
and,
religion.
and government.
I hate the term religion and religious because it has nothing to do with my faith. That's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. I don't even consider it religion. You know, it's not religion. I'm religiously good about doing something. It's a term. Religion is a term. And the thing is people have taken it so seriously. It all boils down to this, I think. And this is humanity's biggest flaw. I know what's best for you. Everybody knows what's best for everybody else. Because that mutual respect factor is just not there in society like it should be. See, if we respected one another, then we would love each other because from that respect, there would be love. If you respect somebody like, you know, Chris, Kev, John, I respect you guys. But out of that, I can love you guys because I respect you. I respect you for your differences. I love you for your differences just like I love you for our similarities.
Joe, I love you too, but no matter what you say, I'm not getting in your tickle trunk.
Damn it. See that? And we're going to have feast together all year round, right, Kev Baker?
But that's the way it should be, though. If we all celebrated
Sure.
all these different books, if you think about it, we could be partying all year long. Why shouldn't we celebrate other
Now,
people's beliefs?
Yeah, I love that.
You're right. Like, for example, if you read the Bible and interpret it the way that I do, it gives you basically 7 Christmases. If you want to make it simple for you Christians that celebrate pagan holidays. But, you know, it gives you 7 feast days. And you know what God says to do on those feast days?
I know what Christian
he says,
Lagarde
break
about
out,
seven.
in his Scottish accent, he spoke down and he says, break out the hard drink. And that's what you do. You break out the hard drink, you have a good time. You take a load off. You thank her. Hey, thanks, brother. Whoa! Hey, we're good, man. We're having a good time. 7 times a year. 7 times a year.
Is that what Christine Lagarde was on about, with her Magic 7 speech, Joe?
Yes, because everything is around 7. Blah, blah, blah. But no, seriously, if you actually took religion, or let me whittle it down even further, make it a little more specific. The doctrine of men. That's what it is that's really derailed everything. It's a doctrine of men. It has nothing to do with what's in the damn books. You know? The second thing is, I know what's best for you. These men get in power, and they write this doctrine, they form these religions. Why? Because they know what's best for their flock, or they know what's best for their constituency, or they know what's best for you. And that seems to be the heart of the problem. I know what's best for you, and what you want, I don't care. And that's
you hit something key right there. What's best for the flock? I mean, think about how religion talks to you. They consider you a sheep, that you're part of the flock, that must follow the shepherd. Come on. It's about taking personal responsibility and standing up on your own 2 feet.
Hey, Chris, As somebody who spent a lot of time in the white church, I think that that's true. But there's a lot of social action churches out there where that's not true, where the whole point, the entire point of the church is social action. In fact, you're not considered to be, it's not about being part of the flock. It's about taking a lead on a particular issue. I think about the Quakers. The Quakers have spent more than 100 years on the ground.
Yeah, the Quakers, the Kev Bakers, and the Kev.
The Kev
I like that. Soundbite.
Meme.
So, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Chris, that there's many, many misled Christians out there, and religion has been incredibly destructive, and it's a very destructive force in the U.S. right now, which is unfortunate, really. Because my experiences, and I spent a lot of time studying this anti-Muslim hate speech. In fact, I've got 40,000 emails from those groups that I collected over the last 10 years. And, this is a sad issue that keeps people from focusing on the real kind of changes that we need to address.
Here's the thing, though. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, see, what you mentioned is the entire problem that I see with religion. You said that a lot of these churches get together and try to make social change. Well, that's the problem that I have, is the fact that they're ramming their social change down the throats of everybody else, and that's how we've gotten to the place where we are now.
I know
by
what's
all
best
these people
for you.
getting together and saying, I know what's best for you. Exactly.
That's what it all boils down to, is I know what's best for you. And the thing is that it has become something to where we've become such a politically correct society that these societal standards almost become binding in a way, almost like law. And that is where we have really kind of fallen off the tracks, is that to hell with societal standards. You know, I played holy hell with my family when it came to freaking homeschooling my kids. To hell with, they aren't, they're supposed to be reading by the time they're this age and that age and doing this and doing that and everything else. And God forbid, you don't test score at this level at this time. Says the freaking hell who? You know why? Because this public school or this entity said so? Who are they? And where are the critical thinkers out there? And where are the independent-minded people out there that are saying to hell with societal standards? Because I don't need to conform to them. For what? I'm me. I'm not the rest of you. And there's just not enough of that. Too many. It's like vaccinations. Why? Because everybody else is doing it? So let's just all jump over the cliff like lemmings. That's what it's all. It's just crazy, dude. Go ahead.
Here's something that we need to realize as a whole, as a species, is that the majority of us, and I would say it's 99.999% of us, and there are those exceptions out there because I do see, and I'll get into this in a minute, but the majority of us, we have God's word written in our heart the minute that we enter this earth. And we know that it's not good to steal, it's not good to kill, it's not good to do any of that. Now, society and the way that our current structures are, it conditions us to make us believe that those things are okay or those things are a matter of survival. And the only reason I think that about 60-70% of people engage in crimes is because out of scarcity and necessity, because they're trying to better their lives, or they're trying to just survive, not even better their lives. I'm sorry, that's not the right word. They're trying to survive, and so they're stealing something to eat, or doing this or that. And a lot of them get brainwashed to think that they've got to steal in order to get a nicer car, or to get this or to get that. But if we took that artificial scarcity out of the equation, then we would see crime go down significantly. Now, there is that small percentage of people, because I see kids walking around and killing each other. I mean, I was watching a documentary about serial killer kids that are 8, 9, 10 years old, and it's chilling. It really is. And something is really wrong with those people. Something's really wrong with those spirits. Maybe a darker energy or demon hijacked that body. I don't know the answer to that question. But I do know that a lot of people use these religions in order to justify oppressing and psychologically torturing and physically torturing people. And that's the problem that I have, because we've been, like I said, we've been conditioned as a society from the beginning, psychologically tortured to believe that there's this God looking down upon us and he's going to send us to a horrible, horrible place. I mean, think about this. If you walk around and you're under the threat of hell for your entire life and you're living in fear, I mean, fear of your creator on top of this, what would it say if you were in fear of your parents? That would tell me that you had a very violent and abusive relationship with your parents and a very violent upbringing with your parents. But that's what these churches teach, is that we have to fear the creator and we're going to go to hell and we're going to be burned for the rest of our lives. And then I hear it all the time, Christians telling people, you're going to go to hell.
Well, yeah, that is
come on, man. They're not torture.
That's Baptist. Come on, that's all crazy. That's like crazy. Those crazy Baptists over there.
It could very well be,
those crazy Baptists.
This has to stop. I love you. You love me. We're all, people here. And
are you going to start singing, dude?
We're consciousness. And
oh man,
the animals don't have religions.
See that? Kumbaya.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to go off.
It was awesome,
John's going to hate me by the end of this.
John is definitely on his way to hate you.
I don't disagree with your perception of one part of Christianity in the United States, but I think there's a lot of
those
Christian
crazy
organizations
Catholics
that even our current Pope, even the current Pope is
he puts on a good show, doesn't he?
He's trying.
He does. He puts on a good show. And he kind of has to right now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff brewing with the Pope.
Yes,
okay, so this year he made a couple. I'm glad you brought that up because this year he made a couple of interesting comments. The first one that really struck me as odd was the fact that he said he had 2 or 3 years left. Now, this typically is a lifetime position. The fact that Ratzinger, bowed out. That's not the way. That's not the norm. I think the last pope to do it was 500 years ago or something like that. So definitely not the norm for them to do that. So here this guy comes along. He's like, well, I think I got 2 to 3 years left there. How do you know that, first of all? And with everything else that they're doing with like the Lucifer telescope and looking out into the stars at a Stargate it's crazy. So what is it that they know of that there's like 2 to 3 years left? Because when you look at the prophecy of the popes, and I'm going to go woo for a second here, St. Malachi's prophecy, of course, Peter the Roman, technically by the numbers, that's him, Francis. And the prophecy is eerily chilling to what he's doing. Like, he'll shepherd his flock through many tribulations. Do you see this guy? I've never seen a pope do what he's doing as far as like handing out sleeping bags and all that stuff. Now, mind you, it's all crumbs. It's crumbs to paupers because look at the vast wealth that the Vatican possesses. The Vatican themselves, if they really gave a rat's ass about it, could end world hunger tomorrow. They could do it tomorrow just with the wealth they possess. But he'll hand out about 500 sleeping bags to the homeless shelter in Rome, and everybody's like, oh, this Pope, yeah, he's all for it. Look at they have tapestries. They have things that you cannot put a freaking price tag on.
That's for the Library of Alexandria, Joe.
But that's what I'm saying. They possess stuff so valuable that there's no way in hell they couldn't come up with the resources to end world hunger. Boom!
We've covered this guy ad nauseum.
Yeah.
And I think it's really key how he has almost predicted he's almost got a couple of years left. And with this Petrus Romanus thing, he is meant to be the last pope. And in these last few years that we have left with him, just recently he's actually started talking about countries paying carbon taxes.
But
they might as well give him a seat at the UN, Joe.
Yeah, but what is that? And he's going to be addressing the United Nations here in a couple of months. As a matter, I think next month he addresses the General Assembly.
They've got representatives there for some reason.
Yeah, but he himself, because it's a nation state.
It's a nation state. Right?
The Vatican is a nation state. It's a nation state in and of itself. A lot of people don't know that. It's got its own central bank.
It's the same as London, the city of London. You've got Rome with Vatican City, and then you've got London, the city of London, and then you've got the district of criminals with the Pentagon.
It's got its own police
religious financial and military arms of the New World Order.
Sure. It's got its own police force. Although they wear pantaloons, they still are a police force. But again, you have to look past that. You have to look past the deception. The deception is this guy gives a shit about everybody and everyone. When in fact, no, he does not. I mean, that is the honest fact. When you possess the resources, like Kev said, just in and of itself, the Library of Alexandria stuff, right? There's no world hunger shouldn't even be a problem right now, but it is. So, this is the problem that I have. And Chris is right. Organized religion is the worst thing that you can ever possibly get into. It just is. Because each one eventually formulates when people get together like that. And I'm all for people getting together. But what happens is when it gets too big, agendas take hold and things start to move. Things start to deviate. The teachings start to change. The interpretations start to change to fit agendas. And I don't know how humanity is going to get away from that. I really don't. I hope in 2015 we can pull our heads out of our asses as humanity and actually, come to grips with reality. By the way, Kev, that is awful. I can't even begin. Look, now, let me ask you something. Is that on Facebook? I hope not.
Yes, it is. Yes,
it is. I'm not seeing it.
Wow.
It's on that. Listen, I know you think it's total woo, Joe, but I seen myself on History Channel earlier on today.
No, dude. Okay, I've got your picture. I see it now. Okay, I see this picture that you're referring to. It looks nothing like you.
I know you're thinking that just now, but you didn't know me when I was younger. Even
No.
I recognized myself in it, man. And my mother and my son, they both thought it was me.
No way.
No
How?
word of a lie, man.
How is that?
Well, my mum, she thought it was an old army picture that I'd found.
Oh, from back in the day. That's
Back
what you're
in the
saying.
day, yeah.
Oh.
But it was totally random from D-Day at World War II.
So what are you saying? It's
I'm not saying anything, Joe.
Did
I'm
you
not
say
going
that
down
you didn't make the
David
cut?
Bock.
That you didn't make the cut, and you had to come back down here to freaking hell on earth again?
Oh, I'll be coming back again. Don't worry about that.
Oh.
I'm like a horrible echo that just keeps coming
See,
back.
that's where you guys got it all. See, I can't. I can't do this again.
I can't believe, though, Melissa Melton has joined the Photoshop war. This is a bridge too far for me, Joe.
This is something special, Kev, that you should
No,
relish.
there'll be no retaliation. There'll be none.
What? Wow. What you know what?
Speechless, Joe?
I don't know what to say. I really don't. As a matter of fact, I am very disappointed in you, Kev, because I thought for sure that you would retaliate. I mean, come on.
It's one I'll need to
No,
think about.
she gets a pass because she has a vagina.
Oh, I see. I see how it is. Okay.
That's what it comes down to, really.
So at least we see that there is a bias here. All right. All right, Kev. Thanks, buddy.
Saying nothing. Saying nothing.
Yeah. I gotta get, where were we?
Derailed?
Totally and completely derailed. Oh, let's talk.
Well, I had said something during the break that I think the listeners would appreciate. When you realize that this is all about spiritual evolution and taking responsibility for yourself,
Sure.
because every soul becomes reincarnated. This is just, when you start to raise your consciousness and you start to understand exactly how the universe works, and when you realize that there are higher dimensional beings, lower dimensional beings, interdimensional beings who are very capable of manipulating any individual or a species as a whole into believing that they are the creator or they are gods or they are this or they are that, then you realize just how vast this evolutionary consciousness evolutionary ladder actually goes and how far away from source we really are when we're here on this third dimensional plane. And then it really starts putting things into perspective and you realize that the source or God or whatever the energy is, it is pure goodness. Because as we go through this consciousness evolutionary journey, I believe that what we're doing is we're going through like a filter. And so we're filtering out all of the negative karma, all of the negative energies, so we can become pure beings and rejoin that source energy once and for all. Now, you can't do that if you just throw all your sins onto a man that was brutally tortured. It's not right. It's not fair, and it's very immature to think like that. But we have to take responsibility for ourselves. Otherwise, we're never going to move forward.
You do, man. There is no doubt about that. John Phillips, give me your thoughts.
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Chris, but you are expressing what is considered to be the Pauline or the Paul version of Christianity. And the other side of this, and of course in America that this doesn't get as much teaching, but James said that without works, without spiritual development, without spending your life doing what you're supposed to do in the community, there is no spiritual evolution.
That's right.
I'm just pointing out, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying about that there's a big problem with, what did Jimmy Cliff say? They tell me there's a pie up in the sky waiting for me when I die.
Yeah. But
well, I think what it comes down to is that we really agree to the same philosophies.
Oh, we do.
I totally agree with
Absolutely.
you. I've said it on my show many times that if you're walking that path that the universe has laid out for you, then you have an element of protection around you as
Yes,
long
you
as
do.
you're doing whatever you're supposed to be doing here. And so
exactly.
we completely agree in that regard. Now, where I have the disconnect from what a lot of the religious organizations do is they do things that they believe is quote unquote morally good, while at the same time coming from a place of darkness and negativity, the oppression of homosexuals, for instance, which is just the first thing that comes to mind. But you oppress somebody and you psychologically torture somebody, they may think it's morally good, but in actuality, it's really a negative. Now, if we were going around and trying to stop world hunger, for instance, and trying to bring down all these systems, these governmental systems that have controlled people, then yeah, absolutely. That's something out of total light and total consciousness, harmony
with
right.
consciousness,
harmony with consciousness. There you go. So that's where I have the problem. It's morality. It's the judgment of morality and how they believe that they are the key holders of morality. Let's take a look at marriage, for instance. They think that they're the protectors of marriage. It should be a man and a woman. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says it should be a man with up to 365 women. This is Solomon. He had, 360 wives, 365.
Now, out of curiosity, how did he not do that without wanting to blow his brains out?
Right, one woman. I don't know anybody who can handle any more than one woman.
One is enough. 360 is
But
just too. I think that what happened is over time we evolved as a species and figured out that one was enough.
Then why
Yes,
can't we
but
evolve as a species enough to put away childish beliefs like that you have the right to tell somebody else that they can or cannot do that?
Right.
See,
Now,
I know it's crazy.
biblical marriage says that I go and rape Cherie and she's my wife as long as I pay her father X amount of dollars. That's biblical marriage.
So is that like a fist pump deal? Yo, daddy,
Wait a second
baby.
here.
Yo.
This is caveman stuff. I see a woman, I'm going to hit her on the head and drag her by her hair.
Though, too.
It doesn't matter. It's still part of Christianity.
No, it's not though.
Every single Bible. Then it's not a true teaching. Then
I'd have to.
No,
I would have to see what
true
you're saying.
Christians understand what happened in the transition between Judaism and Christianity, and it was a huge transition. And part of that was judging other people's behavior too a lot. And I'm 100% in agreement with you that that's just And I don't think that's what. And I think the Bible makes it very clear that. I've talked about this on my show before, and adultery in the Old Testament was considered stoning by death, and there was the scene in I believe it's in Luke where Jesus said, he who is without sin, without sexual sin, and everybody walked away. And that's kind of how I see the whole issue of I don't think anybody is here to judge.
No.
And I know a lot more. I understand that there are a lot of Christians coming from the viewpoint of Christianity you're representing, but there are a lot that aren't.
I think Matthew summed it up best when he said this. He said, "Enter ye in the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that lead to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." And he's absolutely right. Because of that, because of all the false teachings, what happens is you've got a lot of people that have now been led astray, and you're right. He's right. Very few people will actually get to that level of consciousness, get to that level to where they can evolve, to where they go to heaven.
Well, here's the thing, though. I think something as hard-headed and violent, really, as Christianity itself was such a catalyst for so much violence. Can you imagine how many lifetimes those people are going to have to live now because they tortured those people during the Inquisition, or they burned that witch, quote unquote, who just used some herbs to ease her own suffering? That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. When you build up that kind of karma, it takes thousands of lifetimes to get rid of that.
In the spirit of individuality, I'm just going to say it sucks to be that person. Because I'm not like that. And I'm not going to be like that.
I do have a question now. And again, I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody. I have a tendency to do that.
Yeah, you do. Religion. Come on, but anyway.
But I have to speak from my heart, though.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the New Testament says something contrary to the Old Testament. So that tells me that either God was wrong or the Old Testament is false.
No, that's the whole point here was that the teachings in the gospel are significantly different than the teachings in the Old Testament. It's a real change of philosophy. And here's the simple part of the change of the philosophy. It went from there's one group of people, chosen people, the Jews, to God is for everyone.
Yeah.
So there's the first change.
Right, but why? Is it because God was wrong?
No, I don't think God was wrong. How? I mean, to me, I see this whole story. And by the way, I'm not one to be of the belief that the only way to salvation is through Christianity.
No, it's a spiritual evolvement.
Well, right, and I think that the person who wrote the key book on this was William James. The variety of religious experiences that there were many paths to enlightenment. But the point here is that the part of the Bible is that there was a change in the law. And that there was an initial transition of knowledge. At least that's what I see this more as a story of a transition of knowledge, and of course even the set of 10 Commandments came from what was originally 600 rules in Egypt. But the other thing that was important about that ministry was this simplification of the law to simply there is one God and love your neighbor as yourself.
But
that's the only part of the Christian message I really care about.
But the disconnection from the Old Testament, though, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. Is it because God was wrong, or is it because the teaching was wrong, and therefore the book is wrong?
Nah, it's a little more complex than that. That would take probably about 24 hours of shows to get through on that whole thing.
You see what I'm saying? What my point is
that it's
contrary to the Word of God that is written in my heart. And the Word of God that's written in my heart is, as you said, John, love each other, be good, be merry, drink some wine, chill out, have fun.
Mutual respect, personal responsibility. That's all it is.
Exactly.
That's all it is. Because if you practice those two things, you're following the commandments. That's it. That's what they are. You wouldn't do any of the stuff on there if you're just doing those two things. It's unreal. It's like the veil falls. Boom. Damn. We are singing Kumbaya. Can it happen? You know, can it happen? I don't think we have it in us. I really don't.
We can.
No. And we as individuals can, but the world, I don't see it happening. What the hell what catalyst is gonna happen that everybody just all of a sudden sings Kumbaya?
Well,
mass banker hanging.
Bluebeam?
Well, don't you think I think the banking issue is moving forward. It certainly appears to me that there's that some of these banking in 2015 we're going to see banking issues come to a head. I'm absolutely sure of that.
You think? I mean, I see it as my man John King gave a pretty interesting, nice picture in the chat, Kev. That is just nice. I mean,
absolutely.
It kind of looks like you're Russian in a way. Not so Scottish. You got this kind of Rusky type of look to you.
Well, by tomorrow, I'm sure you'll have put a bear in there or a crocodile that I'm wrestling with.
Comrade, no, never. I would never do anything like that to you, man.
I've been derailed, guys. Sorry, I've even missed what's been going on in the show. I
noticed that.
I've been absolutely attacked.
For all those out there listening and that may not be on the truthfrequencyradio.com, of course, we have the chat room. And from time to time, shenanigans can happen where other hosts like Melissa Melton might come in and, maybe drop a couple of Photoshop pictures of Kev Baker in there, totally derailing the show. It happens.
They do say never meet your idols, it will shatter your dreams. Do you know what I mean? I'm destroyed.
So it just happens to be, it's good that, and let me just say, that is a very nice picture of you, Kev. That's excellent.
Very flattering, Chris. We really need a page on the website for the Photoshop war. I think the listeners would get much laughs at that.
Okay, I can set that up.
Definitely.
Oh, my. So now that we're totally completely derailed here.
Melissa Melton, look at her in the chat room. She's even done it in there.
I know.
Here's the thing that I want to pose, because you raised a very interesting point, Joe.
Sure.
Can we as a society, as a species, as a human species, sing Kumbaya together? Well, it depends. Because if we tear down all of these systems that divide us, then yes, maybe we can. Because if you take a baby, I don't care if they're black, white, or anything like that. You take a baby and you raise him without any of these systems or structures or belief systems or any of that. You know, you just raise him or him or her in the manner that you have to love each other, and that's it. Yeah. If you raise the babies like that, then all of a sudden we start seeing change generation after generation. But then what happens is these babies start growing up and they cling on to these ideologies like government, for instance, and they say, oh, well, smoking a plant is bad, and we should put those people in jail because government brainwashes them to believe that. Same with religion. Religion brainwashes people. Oh, we should go behead those people, or we should arrest those people.
We got to get back to step one, though. So how do you drop get rid of all the governments, the ideologies, all that stuff? How do you get rid of it? That's the problem.
These systems are like Freddy Krueger. They don't actually exist. You can try to burn them. You can try to fight them. You can try to do all of that. The only thing that's going to work against them is if you turn your back and ignore them. Then all of a sudden they lose all of their power.
Sure. So that's certainly a solution. So again, the question now is, how do you get people to do that? How do you get people to not participate? And the answer is many. Like I said, it's not just going to be this one Kumbaya moment. It is so incredibly. There's so many ways and avenues that we have to attack this. Just like there's so many avenues that they've attacked us. And my problem is, dude, I don't think that people have it in them right now to make it happen like throw the switch, done. The only way this is going to happen is over generations, just like it took generations for them to get us to this place.
You're absolutely 100% spot on.
I think it's literally going to be a slow climb out.
Yes, but when I was growing up, I grew up Greek Orthodox, and they used to take me to midnight mass.
Did you wear the crazy costumes and stuff too?
No, the participants don't do that. Only the priests.
Oh, damn it!
Yeah, so they did want to make me an altar boy, and I
gladly
my buttocks
accepted.
Tingling.
That doesn't surprise me.
Gladly accepted.
Now it's coming out.
Oh, Monsignor.
In hindsight, I realize why. But okay, they used to do this thing at midnight mass, and it was the funniest thing because all the priest would light a candle, and then one of the participants would light the other one, and they would pass it through the whole church, and everybody would walk around and go, "Ooh, the holy light! Ooh, the holy light!" And I remember driving home, and my mother was like, "Don't let that light go out."
Oh Lord.
Yeah, it was funny. But, the symbology behind it, that's really how we're going to make this change. One light at a time. We shine our lights, we pass it on to somebody else. That sparks within them, it passes on to somebody else. And pretty soon the whole world is illuminated. And I'm using that term as a pun on purpose because that's really what it's all about, is about sparking that inner light within us. And then it gets to the point to where the majority of people go, "What? You want some men with guns to tell me what to do? Absolutely not. Do you think I'm going to go to hell because of no?" And then the ideas become so ridiculous in people's minds that all of a sudden things start changing.
Well,
but we can only do it one light at a time. However, if we don't start shining that light now, we're never going to spread it across generations.
I put a meme up on Facebook a couple days ago of Yeshua, of Jesus, whipping the money changers. And it posed the question, every time people consider the "what would Jesus do" question, how about sometimes consider that, Jesus might be a little bit sore about what's going on, that he's probably pissed. If he was pissed at that, imagine how he'd be if he saw it right now, how it is now. Understand this also, that he stood up and against these pharisaical powers, the Pharisees of the day, and basically did what we did and lived the way that we're living right now, guys, sticking his neck out, standing up to the powers that shouldn't be, and telling them where hey, look, you don't have any power. You don't. And this is the way it is. And this is the way it's supposed to be. And that's what we're doing right now. It
is. But imagine though, Joe, if you came with this message of freedom and loving each other for mankind, and you were consciously evolved as Jesus, because supposedly he was an ascended master. Now, he was one of the most consciously enlightened beings to ever walk the face of the earth.
Sure.
And let's say that you achieved that level of consciousness as well.
Dude.
And then after you died, people started worshiping you and were doing the exact opposite of what you were teaching them to do, which was love each other and honor the creating force, not the Jesus force, not you, but the one that you were saying, hey, that's the source, that's the light, that's the goodness, that's the this and that. I know I would be rolling in my grave if people were worshiping me after my death, because I teach people to
because you don't look for it. You don't look for it. You have to be humble, bro. That's what it's all about.
It goes against everything I say. I say the power is within you.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus said too. He said the power is within you.
He did say that, absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right. And so now we say, oh, Jesus. Well, that's kind of a slap in the face against everything he taught.
And I got to get this one little part in here, because certainly one of the ways we could heal many of these Christians is by recognizing that the formula in chapter 30, verse 22, is cannabis oil that they use.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. People. Yep. There's no doubt about it. There's the recipes in the Bible.
No, I mean, this brings up some very, very interesting Christian questions. The idea that that cannabis oil was at the heart of the start of Judaism, right? Right there along with the tablets.
Pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. We're out of time almost, guys.
Yeah.
2 hours. I mean, this is an awesome, awesome New Year's Eve.
If we were sitting around a table, we could just keep drinking and talking all night.
Absolutely, man. There's no doubt about it. And Kev, it's kind of late for you out there. You already did your New Year's thing, huh? Did you?
Yeah, it's just coming up for 2 years.
Did you put Flossie back in her pen?
Not in a new year, man. You give her some peace. I'll need to teach you, Joe. There's like an etiquette to it, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know the I don't know the custom.
That's for an off-air chat, Joe.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Or Hangar 18.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of Hangar 18, it moved to a new time. So now what is it, Chris? 8 p.m. Eastern?
8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific.
Specific time.
Specific. Yes, 5 p.m. specific.
That's 1 a.m. in the UK.
Yeah. So it's a little more palatable now for even the Kev Baker, so he can actually make some from here on out.
Definitely, that'll be cool. Really looking forward to that.
A lot of cool schedule changes. Of course, one of the best schedule changes that we made is coming up next. Phoenix. Coming at you. So make sure you stay tuned for Phoenix Rising.
No, actually next is Mike and...
I mean Mike, yeah, right. Mike.
Yeah, get it right, Joe. Get it right.
Sorry, it's Mike and Kriston. Sorry, Mike. Sorry, Kriston. It's the Rundown Live.
Harbender wouldn't appreciate that.
Harbender definitely would not appreciate that. I'm so sorry, guys, that you had to run into Harbender yesterday. Jeez. It
I
happened.
got an email from him complaining.
Yeah. We almost out of time here, so we just going to head out. And like I said, don't forget to check out the Rundown Live coming up next. And then Phoenix Rising will take you into the New Year on the East Coast.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me aboard, Joseph.
Yeah, and again, it's been a really, really awesome year here at TFR. And Chris?
Happy New Year,
everyone.
thank you.
You've
and,
been awesome.
Sorry
man.
for pissing everybody.